I want to tell the boys and girls a story this morning that centers around some strawberries. I remember so well, really, the first time that we lived in an area where strawberries were plentiful. And that's the years that we spent at Andrews University in Berrien Springs, Michigan. Lots of strawberries grown in that area. And when they came on roughly around the 4th of July, you could go out to the farms and pick the strawberries at a very reasonable price. And for the first time in my life, I felt that I'd been able to get all the strawberries that I really wanted. There were two farmers that lived in the same neighborhood. One grew strawberries, and the other milked cows and churned butter. Now, strawberries and butter do not necessarily go together. You know, you don't put butter on strawberries. I like cream on them. But this man churned his cream into butter. The other man raised strawberries upon an agreement where they would trade each other a pound of butter for a pound of strawberries. They evidently were about the same price, and so they made an agreement that when the strawberries were in season, this man that had strawberries would give the man that had butter a pound of strawberries, and the man that had butter would give the other man the butter, you see. They made an exchange. Well, the man that churned his cream into butter was not always as honest as he should have been. So after a few exchanges, he felt, well, you know, those strawberries aren't as valuable as my butter. So I tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to cheat that man just a little. Now, he didn't say that in that many words, you know. He was trying to justify it that his cream and butter were worth more than strawberries. So he subtracted off a few ounces of butter each week. And he was getting it down to where he thought he was getting a bargain, you see. He was getting a pound of berries, and he was giving less than a pound. Now, the interesting thing was that the man that sold strawberries usually did not sell them by the pound. He sold them, you know, by the quart or the box or the crate or whatever. And he didn't have a pair of scales. So when he got the pound of butter, he had rigged up a little homemade scales, you know, and he'd put the strawberries over here, the butter over here, and then he'd weigh out the berries, you see, in accordance. Well, every week when the man decreased his butter, in return, he was getting less strawberries, you know. And pretty soon, the man getting the strawberries and giving away his butter decided he'd weigh these strawberries because he thought there was less. And he weighed them. And then he made his way right over to the farmer. And he says, you know, you've been cheating me. You are not giving me a full pound of strawberries. Well, the man says, you know, I'm sorry. I thought I was. I do not have a pair of scales. And he says, I set your butter here, and then I put my strawberries over here, and I make them balance, and you get exactly the same amount of strawberries that I get in butter. You know, boys and girls, that story, which, by the way, is a true story, is really the way life operates to a large degree. You know, we get out of life basically what we put into life. If we put smiles and happiness and joy into life, what happens in return? People smile back. We find happiness. We find joy. But you know, if we're grumpy and unhappy and shove people out of our way and say naughty and nasty things, isn't that really what happens in return? Our attitudes, our actions in life are just about the same as the man exchanging strawberries and butter. We get back. I wonder how many of our boys and girls here this morning have either wanted to see something or wanted to get something or just desired to have something so bad that you could just hardly wait.